I'm so thrilled to be able to welcome back to the program my very good friend Josh Idehen, Tom Leeper, and Shanaz Dorsett. Together they make up Benin City. Hi, how are you doing, everyone?
I'm good.
All good here. Yeah, all good. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
Shanaz.
as good as can be, you know.
As good as can be.
See you all.
So we're all in self-isolation, I guess. We're all sort of, you over there in London, and then Tom's in Devon. You're all doing what I'm doing. We're still in isolation.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm in Stockholm, and Stockholm has a.
Oh, you're in Stockholm. Yes, that's right.
Stockholm has a very Nordic model when it comes to isolation, as in not. It's quite breezy here, and everything is fairly relaxed. The government went in the absolute opposite direction, and I think they can afford to do that because it's a small country, only 10 million people, and they've got humongous amounts of space. And everyone is kind of personally a bit more cautious, and the government is competent and the health service works. So
yes, yeah. Well, that's good. Good for you. So Shanaz, this is the first time we've got to speak to you. So how did you get to meet up with these two dudes? I mean, I mean, one of them I've known for quite some time, and he's a bit of a scary kind of dude because he wants to play all the time. He wants to have fun all the time. I mean, he's somebody that I'm not sure you can keep still when you're around Mr. Idehen. So how did you get mixed up with Tom and Josh?
Mixed up. Just like most Londoners, I'm kind of a creative with many projects.
Yes.
So for a long time, I was doing my solo stuff, which is literally just me, Shanaz Dorsett, kind of more neo-soul stuff. And so I met Josh. He'd asked me to perform or do a session for his outlet that he was running at the time, Prajazzy. And like we hit it off and everything. And then I got a call from him a little bit of a while later to ask to work together.
And Tom, you've been kind of around the music
sort of
business.
like a step, a program that happened in steps.
Right. So Tom, you've been around the music business for quite some time. So you got together with Josh for a couple of years back now?
Yeah, so Josh and I have been working together for should I say? I don't know.
No.
Yes.
No.
For a while.
No.
I'm the youngest. Don't even.
So, yeah.
We are fresh as can be. If you cannot guess, that's the way it's supposed to be.
The band kind of. I don't know if we touched on this last time, but the band kind of has gone through a few kind of guises and was kind of more of a collective in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was part of it when there was like a larger brass section, because my role originally was basically just like playing sax as part of the brass section.
Yes.
And and then the band's kind of evolved, and we decided to take it in a different direction, start recording, and decided actually if we're not just kind of jamming out and like smashing poetry and horns together, like what kind of sound would we make on record? And that's kind of when we took a real turn, and Benin City kind of found its feet and its identity a bit more.
Right. So Benin City's got a new single out, and I want to talk about that because I think it's extremely important, because the last time I spoke to Josh and to Tom, you had just put out Hold Them Close, which you'd written a year before and then decided to put it out because you thought it was important that we all kind of cared about one another, because there's a lot of sort of horrible feelings going on in the world right now where people are hating one another, and you guys said, hey, no, let's hold them close. But now you got this new single out called Hostiles. Who wants to start? Who wants to talk about it first? Let's go to Josh.
Oh, okay. So Hostiles came about, like the first line of Hostiles I wrote, I think a bit after Trump got elected. It was, what's it called? Bang, bang on the door, and there's a raid at dawn. And it was because Theresa May had been the Home Secretary around that time, and she had famously said that she wanted England to be a hostile environment for immigrants and asylum seekers. And that was meant to be the official policy. I remember around that time, 2017 or whatnot, we had vans driving around urban areas, blaring out, with these big billboards going, go home. If you know an illegal immigrant, here's a number you should call. They actually wanted to kind of really change the environment. And then when we started working on the new stuff, in 2018 to 2019, we started working together. I put forward the track, and Tom and Shanaz, we all sort of workshopped how we felt about the political situation around that time. We all discussed it. We talked about lyrics. I remember we had Tom and I, we had a huge conversation about using the name Boris, because initially we felt like, because Theresa May was in charge at the time, and we didn't know how long Boris was going to be in here. And then kind of towards the end of 2019, we were like, no, we have to put Boris's name in here. Let it, if it dates the track, let it date the track, fine. But, we felt like the Prime Minister was going to do irreparable damage to the country. And we were all kind of uniformly terrified of how it's going to affect Black, immigrants, LGBT people living under that kind of extreme Tory proto-fascist government. And we felt like we needed to kind of essentially name the demon,
Yes.
Call the demon by his name. And then, we sat on it for a long time because it didn't really fit with our sound, with everything else that we worked on. We've sort of really gone in the direction of dance pop, and it's something that's worked well for us live. It was a direction that we all felt really comfortable with. We kind of talk about important issues and make things kind of pop, and it was very, very dark and grimy. We're like, Urgh. And then I guess with what happened with George Floyd, and what's happened with all of the years, especially at the beginning with the Windrush generation and Grenfell, and how the white paper came out that is sort of whitewashed the government's role in it, and so kind of realizing that the UK was also complicit, even though it's different with what's happening in the States. Black Lives Matter in the States is a lot more terrifying. Here in the UK, we still have over 2,000 cases of police brutality and deaths in police custody that have resulted in 0 convictions. Not one police officer has ever been kind of convicted for the death of a Black or Southeast Asian person in their custody. And we felt like it was a charged moment. We had to say something. And Tom was actually the one who was just like, we should put Hostiles out now. And we were like, okay, cool. And then we also kind of felt like we didn't want to sort of put it out just for ourselves and for our profile or whatever. We felt that it definitely had to be something that, if not just a conversation starter, contributed to the moment, contributed to the movement. And so we donated money from the band accounts, and we donated some of our personal funds to a lot of charities, in particular the UK Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And we initially, when we first released it, we thought, people might stream it, they won't buy it. So let's just actually put some of our band funds. But we've been actually quite blessed, and people have responded very well to the track. And we've kind of, we've generated a lot of money, and we're hoping to kind of get a few more before the end of the month.
Good. Well, we're going to be playing it in this program, and we've been playing it already. So over here in the States, you're getting people to hear it. And I'm mentioning about the charity part of it as well. So I think that's really important. Let's go to Shanaz and talk to me about working with these guys, about putting this record together and everything else that you've done with Benin City, Shanaz.
I mean, the spirit of Benin City was always kind of, even before I was in it, was kind of that of a collective, and then through the years it's just kind of I suppose it's just zoomed in, and us now as 3 are kind of like 3 sort of adopted siblings as little family, and we have a very collective, kind of like a collective identity or collective kind of ethos, both kind of musically and creatively, our sort of commitment to making people dance, but then also kind of our real sort of, I guess, passion for making the personal things political and the political things personal. And so, I mean, with this song, it's definitely quite an interesting moment, I think, because in ways it's almost like the flip of the coin, the other side of the coin from Hold Them Close.
Hold Them Close,
where
yes, yeah.
In ways, I mean, in so many ways, I mean, the Hold Them Close is definitely much more of a broad sentiment, and a universal sentiment that says kind of like that you can relate to, even though we were coming from our very specific political pains with that song as well. It's very much quite universal, the idea of literally holding your loved ones close, but also even sound wise, it's kind of in that kind of genreless indie kind of world, that space that we sometimes inhabit. And then Hostiles is this much more specific. I mean, what I think is powerful about it is it almost sets a scene of some of maybe the most gruesome kind of images or instances of brutality, racism, oppression that you see here in the UK. Like, it's still very specific to, it's through a very UK lens, but at the moment, I think for many of us from all different communities, but especially as Black people and people as part of the Black diaspora, are in this collective kind of orbit around our passion for ending this. So working with these guys is definitely just always been, it's helped me in so many ways to negotiate and reconcile my own identity and how I express that creatively.
Right.
But it's also for the three of us in the last few months made us we're just constantly examining as well, like how we enter the conversation, because the three of us, again, we're all three in ways Londoners, so we're like part of this really diverse like community, but we all are part of quite specific communities. Like, you know, my positioning in this debate and in this movement as a mixed race woman, as a queer woman, is different to Tom's as a white English queer man than to Josh's as, you know, as a Black man of African descent. You know, from it's we're all standing at different points in the circle. And I think that that's really worth acknowledging. But I think it's been really empowering for us to do something that's so direct, because we kind of speak and sing and dance for everyone. And then Hostiles is a bit like, this is for Black Lives Matter. This is about, you know, we've released it really with quite a potent aim of expressing and, you know, explaining and describing a very much Black experience. Like, there's no sort of like soft edges around it. Even musically, it's really trappy. We've got an East London MC, Eklipse, on there. So I'm really proud of the words that Josh and Eklipse wrote for that. And I suppose that for me and Tom, I'm sure you'll agree, Tom, like, we're quite privileged to kind of be part of that. And in ways like step back and let them tell that story so like potently. And I can't wait to do it on stage and just kind of support that.
Shanaz, you explained that so incredibly well. Thank you so much for that. So it's very heartfelt.
Thank you.
I'm going to go over to Tom now. Tom, something Shanaz said, which I think I really want to pick up on, and that is, she mentioned about Benin City making music to dance to. And that's something that you have done a lot of work in. And I'd just like to get your take on making music that's got a message, but also you can dance to, you can move around to, you can have that energy. And that's what I think that Benin City is doing. But I'd just like to get Tom Leaper's take on that.
We a kind of a sentiment that we've carried through the previous album Last Night and into this album is something Josh always says is that celebration is a form of riot. It's a form of protest. And when times are tough, it can be such a cathartic release for many people. And if you look throughout history, like, a lot of the most amazing dance music and the most amazing parties happen throughout times of extreme hardship. So that's kind of a spirit that we take quite seriously, and we try and inject in all our music. And as Shanaz said, for the last record, this more universal sentiment we had with this dance pop beat, dance pop indie production was something really universal. But Hostiles this time, Shanaz again said it perfectly. It's just such a specific point of view. It's such a specific style that we've used for this record to that sounds extremely London, very South London. It totally encapsulates that point of view.
Yes. For my listeners that are just joining us, I want to let you know that we're talking to the three members of Benin City. This is a group out of London. We're talking to Shanaz Dorsett, we're talking to Tom Leaper, and to my very good friend, Josh Idehen. Josh, I want to go to you now and talk about the using of an MC out of East London, Mr. Eklipse. I'm making up the Mr. there, of course, but talk to me about using an MC on this record.
Well, I think with Benin City, we've always been very, very careful about who we featured with. I think we've always felt, I mean, Shanaz started as a feature and then she ended up in the album. So
yeah,
we always tried our very, very best to kind of make sure that they brought something that we couldn't sort of create for ourselves, that we couldn't make within the band. And on our last two records, we've had like a spoken word artist, Deanna Rogers, for example, who was amazing in our first album. And then for this record, we kind of thought like, okay, I knew I didn't want it to be like just my own perception. And Shanaz, we had a conversation about it. Shanaz sort of felt like, well, this is kind of, it's a very, very hard beat and it's a hard track. So it's maybe not something where, you know, someone can come in and do a singing voice. So we all decided collectively, okay, great, we should get another rapper. And we went through a lot of choices, but when I suggested Eklipse, everybody was kind of like, hell yeah. We've been a huge fan of his work since day dot. I mean, I knew him before his voice broke, so it's always kind of very surreal for me, right? I knew when he had like a very light voice and he talked like this, and then I didn't see him for a while, and then he was like, yeah, fam, I've got this new track, and I heard it, and he was all like, yeah, E to the double MC. I'm like, where did that come from, you know? And he's such him and his mom be the most amazing. His mom is a spoken word artist as well. They're the most amazing, like just brilliant people to be around. Very, very funny, very cheeky, and such a professional. I sent it to him. I told him what the idea was, and you know, he sent me the demo with all these ad libs as well, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm free on this day, this day, this day, and I work during the day, so I have 2 hours in the evening, so if there's anything wrong, just let me know. And the first time when I heard it, I was just like, nah, it's perfect. I would
yeah.
I mean, I think I know I like a song, I like a lyric when I feel immediately jealous, and I either want to block the person online or ask them to join our band.
Right.
And the last time I did that, I was Shanaz, and I knew
You blocked her online.
it might be a bit full on. Hey, Tom, Shanaz, so how do you feel about Eklipse kind of joining us? Like we could be like the next Fugees, kind of. Yeah, so,
I'm fed up of being in a band full of boys anyway, because you know, when it comes to the outfits and stuff like that, it's just like you know, they've got this whole rack of stuff because they're all tall, slim in their sample size. So I'm vetoing that only for the sake of the outfits, only for the sake of like, you know, again, we're going to need an extra room. But he did such a good job, and I think he really distilled or just kind of rounded off what Josh had started. Like Josh is really like in his element there, and I feel like it's the song where we hear how Josh sounds live. This is the closest to it, because Josh is like we have so much energy on stage. And then that's really encapsulated in Hostiles, and then Eklipse comes with just like just a different delivery, but still just as hard hitting. And I feel pretty proud. I feel like we look very cool. We're so lucky to have someone that cool on a track.
I want to see you. So many sick lines. I mean, for me, like there's so many standout lines that really capture, I think, the experience of kind of like immigrant, Grenfell, and Black underneath a UK government. My favorite is kind of like the first bars. They're always going to take it too far. That's what your government is. They're going to take away your aunts and they'll govern your kids. And I'm like, I'm just there sitting thinking, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that?
It's so poignant. It really is.
Where are the lies? All these lyrics, they're hard hitting, and they almost sound fantastical, but they're not. That's terrifying.
And that's the sad kind of part of it, isn't it? I think a lot of the music that we've made, and I think for me, this has been a period of, I guess, realization as a creative, that a lot of the stuff that maybe even 6 months ago we wrote that felt risque or felt that sense of doubt as to whether we should go there, or you know in your heart you made it.
Yes.
And then I guess the positive is that just collectively in the world we're seeing people want it, people need it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's obviously always bittersweet knowing that almost the stuff we wrote frustratedly a year ago is even more true, rings too true now. You know, to say, take away your aunts. You know, you think about like Belly Majinga, the Transport for London worker who passed away recently after, you know, like a hate attack. Someone with coronavirus spat on her, and there's been no justice for that. And you know, and you think of her as an auntie, and that's kind of the urgency, I think, of the conversation at the moment, is that when we thought we'd had enough a year, 2 years ago, it all rings even more true. So
you know, for the three of you, it's wonderful to have you and hearing what you're saying directly, so we can get this across to my audience, because we go out across the world, as you know. But one of the things I think is really important about what you're saying is that, particularly here in America, even though like Windrush and some of the other things that are pertinent to the UK, they really reflect about what's going on here in the USA as well. So I think what you're saying is very universal. And I had a friend in Australia the other day that listened to your single. He said, God, this is just pertinent to what's happening here in Sydney. I mean, it's like, I think it's wonderful that you're able to put these things across. Something I've just got to say, I've got to ask you this, and anybody can jump in and answer this. Please do a dance mix of this. I mean, like an extended 12-inch mix. Can you do that?
We'll get right on it.
Thank you. I want to touch on something which Josh and I, and I'm sure if Tom was there or not, but we talked about the last time we had a long conversation. Josh and I in the past have had a number of conversations, but something that you brought up, Shanaz, just now, and I think it's important for all the listeners and the viewers of this conversation, and that is, along with Black Lives Matter, there's a big concern over trans people and LGBTQ people. It seems to me that all these things are kind of almost melded together for a good reason. But I just wonder, from your point of view, because as Josh pointed out to me, I think in a conversation we had a couple of months back, that here you are, two queer people, as he said, and one straight person or cis person, or whatever the language is they use these days. How important is that for you? And either of you or all of you can answer, but how important is that to put that across, to say who you are, what your sexuality is, or what? Is it important, or is it something that you feel that it's like, here we are, we're in 2020, and nobody should make a concern about who I love and who I don't love? Just get me your feedback on that.
I guess I'll go, I mean, it's one of those things where it's not necessarily, it's down to us as individuals. I by no means feel that it's necessarily any artist's responsibility.
Yes.
For their identity to be center stage in their work, but for us, it just is. I think for one, it's our music is very personal, very nuanced, we're storytellers. So in order for us to even have anything to say, we have to draw from who we are. Right. But I do think that we are in quite a unique position as quite an intersectional band, essentially, that we're able to talk about our individual identity, struggles, experiences, but also I think it's really important to acknowledge where they intersect, acknowledge that, you know, for instance, the current conversation with Black Lives Matter is we have to make sure that we're protecting all Black lives.
Right. We have
to make sure that we're paying attention to the most oppressed within our communities. Mm-hmm. And we're just constantly, as friends, as humans, we're constantly learning from each other. So that just spills into our music, but also I think we're just quite mouthy, political, opinionated people.
Mouthy, so, I like that.
Yeah, like we were never going to be able to hide much, were we? I suppose we
Yeah.
We're just too earnest in what we do.
Right.
But I definitely think that intersection between all of the different groups is completely necessary, because it's all related. It's all
Right.
it's all. We
We're
can't
very
talk about one
privileged.
without the other.
We're very privileged that we
Tom's next.
can openly say who we are and have that forefront as part of our storytelling. Shanaz is right. There's not necessarily a responsibility for people to do that, but we're in a position where we can. But there's many countries around the world where someone can't openly say that they're gay. They can't openly say that they're trans and remain safe.
Yes.
We're in an extremely fortunate position there. And as Shanaz said before, this is the time where the Black Lives Matter movement can shine a light on some of their most vulnerable people, which is why the Black Trans Lives Matter phrase is something you've heard a lot. And similarly, it's June, it's Pride Month around the world, and trans people and Black trans people are part of that same movement. So that's again why you're hearing these words repeated, because this is an intersection, as Shanaz said.
Let me ask you, the three of you, about music that has a message, because over the last few years, it does seem to me that there's sort of been a backing away from musicians from having the four. I'm trying to think of the right words to say this, but there seems to be a sort of people have backed off of having music that says something. But now, since COVID-19 and since what has been happening specifically in different countries, like in the UK with Windrush and in America with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, there seems to be more people making music like you're making that's got a message. Talk to me about the necessity for creatives, as Shanaz said, to really get points across. You're doing it, but how important is that for you to do?
I think it's incredibly important. I think I personally, I got rid of all the drafts that I wrote this year after the last 2 weeks, because I felt that it was bad enough that when I was living in the UK, I was living under like Brexit. You know, we had the pandemic, we had economic instability across the world. And then you're going to throw in kind of like George Floyd and sort of the heightening of racial tensions. And they say a Chinese curse is "May you live in interesting times." Well,
yes.
it doesn't get any more interesting than that. It's like someone said on Twitter, like every generation is supposed to have one major cataclysm, and for some reason we've got pretty much the entire bingo card, right? Every single spot in the space of a year. Every month this year, it's been something new. It's like, now what? I mean, only just yesterday, India and China started flaring up at the border again. And so I think it is important for people to reckon with the fact that you are living in those times that you heard your parents talk about, you heard your elder brothers talk about, you read in history books. Like, people are going to talk about these 4 years, the last 4 years, for ages. They're going to discuss how entire countries seem to lose their collective minds, how divided we were, how kind of like all the old structures fell apart, possibly whole empires fell apart. And I think it's important for artists to document that, to sort of bring out the emotion, to finesse that emotion, to give it clarity, to give people who may not be able to kind of put it in words a way of doing that, right? Like, I feel it's incredibly important. I think if it's not your bag, if you feel like you try it and you don't do it,
right?
If you try it and it doesn't work out, then fair enough. But I feel everybody definitely needs to at least some way be involved. Right.
There's something that I want to talk about just very briefly here, Josh, and thank you for that. And that is how we understand what's going on in the world. For instance, I'm from the UK, so I know about Windrush, and I happened to be in London at the time of Grenfell Towers, and I was watching it live on TV as it happened, like a lot of people in the UK. And over here, we've got things like the George Floyd thing happening. We've got all the disasters and the horrible things happening here. But one thing that seems to strike me is that you in the UK, for instance, and other parts of the world, but specifically the UK, you know so much about what's going on in America. But in America, we don't seem to have as much information, or we don't seem to need the info. I'm not sure what it's about. But when I say Grenfell Towers, or when I say Windrush, it kind of doesn't go anywhere to my listeners over here. Any thoughts about that, about how news is sort of, in the UK, it seems like there's more news available about everything everywhere, whereas in America, it seems to be very closeted, very isolated to America alone. Just like to get your take on that.
Well, I lived in Houston, Texas for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I went to middle school and high school.
Oh,
there.
did you? Okay.
And, you know, obviously it starts at grade school education level.
Yes.
Because you're not taught world history, you're not
Right.
taught world geography until you get to, at the time when I was in school, until you get to like the 9th or 10th grade.
Yes.
So you're about 14, 15. But at the same time, I think, and even circling back to like what you said about music with a message, I think the thing is that the channels have changed. So you might have lots of pop stars who aren't necessarily singing about the world's ills, but they're tweeting about them, or they're talking about them.
Yes.
You might not have, mainstream news talking about certain things, but actually young people are on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on, today they're on Instagram talking about what's going on in Yemen, and so I think that there's definitely America can be very insular, but that's because it has its own narrative about being the free world. It has its own narrative about being the middle of the world. And also when it comes to pop culture, it's the leader of that. So even for us as people, as part of the African diaspora, for a lot of us, we've orbited around Black American culture, but then that just means in ways like there's a kinship we have. So for us to see an African American get killed on screen, that feels like seeing ourselves get killed, because we have orbited around that culture to define our Blackness for generations. But at the same time, maybe not on BBC News, but elsewhere, kids, there's this exchange. Young people have got the same slang across the pond now, around the world.
That is so well put, Shanaz. Thank you so much for explaining that. And I hope you get where I was going with that question.
Yeah, for sure.
You answered it so well. I'm just looking at the time. We only have a certain amount of time. So once we put the music in. So let me ask you about, for you guys, for the three of you, for Benin City, because I obviously I'm a fan, and I've make no bones about that. So the future for you guys musically, let's just concentrate for a moment on the music aspect. So I'm going to go to Tom first on this.
Well, like as we talked before about the music we kind of currently been releasing, we've released the first 2 tracks of music we worked on the majority of 2019. So we started writing the end of 2018 and worked on it in Margate with our producer James Greenwood alongside, and also a little with Ludwig Saturday Monday, who's based in Sweden. So we've got music that we're ready to release. The current state of affairs with COVID means that unfortunately we're not able to gig, and as an independent artist, that really does help you to be able to promote your music, make some noise, get people to hear you, and kind of come along and listen to what you're doing. Yes. So we've got material that we're excited to put out. I think we're all just taking this time to, it's been a really tumultuous time to kind of take stock. Kind of all kind of creativity really is kind of at the moment ground to a halt while we're digesting kind of what's going on in the world right now. It doesn't feel like the right time to quite be making noise and to be kind of writing about it just yet. But we're really excited because we have music that we're ready to put out. The kind of the sentiment of dance music and celebration as a form of riot, as I mentioned earlier, is still like the heart of what we're doing. So we've been talking a lot about identity in general, about what it is to be a gay man, what it is to be a queer woman, what it is to be a Black man living in the UK, living in London, those experiences, and like kind of touching on what we said before, like a lot of the messages we kind of talk about are universal. They're universal in our collective otherness
Yes.
together as a band.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what sets apart Hostiles that just came out, really, is that actually it's one of the most specific things that we've done on the last record. So it does feel like, sorry, on this one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So it does really feel like a privilege that we've been able to put it out and let that be heard.
You know what I like? Individual things to say, but collectively, the ideas are coming across, and I love that. I'm just going to go to Josh for a very quick take on what Tom just answered. Josh, your ideas about going forward with Benin City.
I think we're in a almost united space. I think creatively and emotionally. Like we've gone through the period of like finding out where all our influences are. We're actually kind of very, very diverse in terms of our tastes. Shanaz is very new soul. I'm pretty much left field, angrily pop, and Tom is finesse and style and great, sparkly. And I think we spent all of 2019 essentially just checking ourselves, just making sure nothing went too R&B or went too pop or went too jangly, and sort of coming to a middle where all of our songs, all of the forthcoming music that we have, all fit within the same sort of genre, even if that was a genre that we invented ourselves.
Yes.
And I think from a lyrical point, I think that was where things, I would say, they were even much more united, because again, we are 2/3 queer, 2/3 Black, and we all kind of really had a foot in talking about our identity, talking about our experiences. Our personal lives were always going to be political by default. I remember one time, Tom, Shanaz, and I, we all went to a festival, and we all wanted to talk. We came up with this idea for a song where we were going to write about being really angry that we were othered in some way, shape, or form. And it was such a brilliant writing session. We never got to turn that into a song, but just being able to kind of have a conversation where we all felt like we had a stake, and we all felt like we could add something, and we could essentially bring some kind of aspect of our experiences and our identity to light in the same song, was, I think, a very uniting experience. And I feel like our future music is going to show that in ways. Probably not all as angry as Hostiles, but definitely as potent. And actually, in a very, very good point, I've been promoting the hell out of Hostiles, and I shared it with a friend of mine, Sophia Blackwell, who also has a radio show. And she got back to me and she said she was going to play Hostiles, but she also said she wanted to play a song that we had released a while back called Water Time, because she is a queer woman, and the lyrics to those songs really reached to her. And that was really important for me, because my lyrics, I mean, they're just talking about me having a good time. But Shanaz, I mean, if I can speak for you, Shanaz, she kind of hinted at it, but didn't want to make it explicit. But I thought it was really cool that, what's it called? One queer person had, it was like, you can hide it, but that is as clear as day to me.
Well, I think, it's. I think that's where we're at, I suppose, is with every project. I mean, these guys from the start were always really political, really honest, and really raw. But we're all coming into our own as people. But we're really indebted to how the communities around us are kind of giving us this safe cushion, because, I mean, in What a Time, I say something about what a time to be a girl, what a time to be a guy. But at the time, I'd originally written it as what a time to love a guy.
Ah, yes.
What a time to love a girl.
Yes.
And to me to say, I wasn't out to my family, I wasn't out to the world, and I'm like 32 years old. So, whereas that feels so freeing, but also not as big a deal, because but we're really indebted, to be honest, to those people that say, we get you, to those people that dance and have an amazing time to these really political sentiments. So I think we're just continuing on, aren't we? But we're probably just getting more and more open and free, say whatever we want. And we're so blessed to have all these different communities of people join us. So as soon as we can get out there and gig, I think it's going to be a party. It's going to be
well,
cathartic party where we all have to let loose.
Yeah, I think we're blessed to have you putting the music out and entertaining us in the way that you're doing. I just wish it was possible that we could see you live. Maybe I have to, when you do get to play live again, I have to pop on over to London so I can, if you're playing in London or wherever, I have to go and see you live. That would just be wonderful. I'm looking at the time. Unfortunately, we only have a certain amount of time, so I'm going to have to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute delight talking to you. Let me give a name check again for my listeners. Shanaz Dorsett, if you're looking at the video, there's the lady there on the right-hand side of the screen. I think that's right. Tom,
Hey.
Tom Leeper is there with the hat, talking to us from Devon, lovely Devon. And there, my very good friend, the gentleman who, I got to tell you two, the last time I saw Josh in London, his energy is so vital. I love this man's energy, and I love the way it transfers into what you guys are doing. You've all got wonderful energy, and I love it. Josh Idehen is right there on the left-hand side at the top. Thank you so very much, you guys from Benin City. We're going to play out with your lovely, fantastic, potent new single, and hope to talk to you again soon. So thank you very much for joining us at Life Elsewhere.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.